Bernard Shaw.
I'm Cheryll Jones from CNN. This is The World Today.
Thanks for joining us.
All three Baltic republics have now voted to break away from the Soviet Union. Latvia took its initial step towards separation today following the dangerous path blazed by Lithuania and Estonia. Inside Latvia's parliament, passage of a Declaration of Independence. Outside, a demonstration of delight. A Chinese diplomat in Washington says he's defected because he supports the pro-democracy movement in China. Sue Lin, shown here on the right, says he's applied for political asylum with U.S. authorities and claims he's the fifth person connected with the Chinese embassy in Washington to defect since last year's Tiananmen Square massacre. Sue was assigned to the embassy 2 years ago and handled Chinese student affairs. He says he has recently been recalled, afraid he'd be punished if he returned to China.
Ed Yarston, CNN, Kent, Ohio.
Still ahead on The World Today, the politics of water and mud. A battle is underway in the Grand Canyon. Well, it's not something you would think of as a quarter-century old, but the lava light turns 25 this year. Although, as CNN's Jeff Flock reports, the symbol of the 1960s psychedelia is anything but a relic from the past.
Or maybe it's setting the mood in the bedroom in the 1990s.
That's a scary thought. I'm Jeff Flock, CNN, in Chicago.
The U.S. unemployment rate has climbed to its highest level in more than a year. The Labor Department reports the jobless rate was 5.4% in April. That's a jump of 0.2 of a percentage point from the month before. The unemployment rate hasn't been that high since January of last year. If the OPEC oil cartel gets its way, gasoline prices will be going up soon. OPEC ministers have come to a new agreement designed to push prices higher. However, as CNN's Tom Mintier reports, you may not see much of a difference at the gas pump this summer.
Tom Mintier, CNN, Atlanta.
Some pretty hot gossip about rock star David Bowie from his ex-wife. The couple divorced in 1980. She reportedly received $700,000 from the star. That in exchange for not speaking publicly about him for 10 years. Well, that gag order expired last month. Today, Angela Bowie let loose on the Joan Rivers Show.
So you caught him in bed with a guy?
I caught him in bed with men several times. In fact, one of the best times I caught him in bed was with Mick Jagger.
You did
I came back from a trip.
Well, the former wife says she wasn't too pleased that since there was nothing she could do about it, she just made breakfast.
In Washington, I'm Bernard Shaw. Good weekend to you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Bernie. Same to you. And at the CNN Center in Atlanta, I'm Cheryll Jones. On Monday, trying to teach racial tolerance at a New York high school. We'll take a look.
I'm Bernard Shaw.
I'm Cheryll Jones. From CNN, this is The World Today. Authorities fear 200 square miles of southeastern Texas may soon become a lake bed. Cresting floodwaters from the Trinity River are coursing through Lake Livingston Dam at this hour. 7,000 people who live downstream from the dam have been warned to leave their homes before the tide swamps their communities. CNN's Tony Clark reports.
Tony Clark, CNN, Liberty, Texas.
Still ahead on The World Today, it may take more than magic to keep the NBA empire of the 80s on top in the 90s.
Points for Magic Johnson.
The LA Lakers, a dominant force in the NBA throughout the 80s, but is the dynasty doomed in the 90s? Here's CNN's Nick Charles.
Well, Cheryl, look what happened to the TV show Dynasty.
A new high-speed video camera will allow the capture of some fast-moving scientific events with amazing clarity. CNN's Dan Ronan explains how the camera works and why it can be useful.
This firecracker is about to explode. Dan Ronan, CNN reporting.
Pat and Cheryl are standing by. They're going to co-anchor the news in Atlanta, and my friend James Brown is getting out of jail, right, guys?
Well, kind of, Larry. James Brown is getting out of prison, but he's not exactly free. We'll see a report tonight on how the Godfather of Soul will still be paying a debt to society.
And you are going to have to see some pictures that we have tonight, a vision or an apparition that some say looks like Jesus. It is something to see. Larry?
Stay tuned for that.
Wynton Marsalis is widely known for his jazz and classical trumpet achievements, and now the most famous member of an exceptionally gifted family of musicians, is turning his talents to television. CNN's Mark Hafley reports.
Mark Hafley, CNN Entertainment News, New York.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryll Jones at the CNN Center in Atlanta. To our viewers in the U.S. and around the world, welcome to World Day. Those stories are ahead in the next hour, but first, Reed Collins is in Washington with our top story.
A live television talk show in Paris.
Also ahead, outraged Yugoslavs take to the streets after a drunken policeman goes on a shooting spree. Up first for Japan's space agency, 3 satellites are launched from a single rocket. Also, we'll take a look at a growing debate in Britain over research on human embryos, what some consider science, others say is a crime. Good morning, Patrick. You're absolutely correct. The weather is pretty nice out in California, and the weather down in Florida today, a bit on the soggy side. However, the temperatures are not going to be all that bad. They'll be a little balmy with 70s and 80s down in Florida. Southwestern California, 70s and 80s as well. Let's check the satellite closely, and we'll see what's going on with the clouds. High pressure settling into the central plains. High pressure ruling parts of the New England states, the Ohio Valley. So you're looking pretty good. A nice day coming up with much of the east with mild weather unfolding. A little chill in the air, but who cares? The skies are going to be pretty sunny in New England. Down in Florida, still a lot of clouds around with some rain on tap continuing. We've had soggy weather for a couple of days. Southern Florida, Central Florida, you're going to be soggy again today. At least occasional showers. It won't be raining all the time. Now, here's a system, though, we're watching. Even Kentucky got into the act this morning with a little bit of fog, reducing visibilities. That fog extended up to Indiana. We had fog over in Kansas, down in Oklahoma, Louisiana, some of the Gulf states, and over in southeastern Texas. But the mid-morning hours should continue to bring improving conditions to those fog-prone areas. Later today, we'll be watching this front march east. Higher elevations of Utah, you could see as much as 8 to 12 inches. Northeastern foothills of Colorado tonight, you could also have some snow on tap. And again, colder weather moving behind that front. Highs today, well, the colder weather in the northwest, New England states too in the 30s. Highs again today in Southern California, very warm in the 80s. Now, let's take a look at some hometown cities and forecast highs. It may be spring-like in much of the east and central U.S., but winter wants to hold on in the west. Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryll Jones as we welcome the second full day of summer on Sunday. A crisp and mild day on tap for much of the New England area and Great Lakes thanks to a Canadian high pressure bringing drier, cooler air. Where you had 80s on Friday and on Saturday, you're going to have 70s come Sunday. Summer storms, though, will dot the landscape down in the southeast. Some of them, again, could be on the heavy side. The northwest stays unsettled. The southwest stays hot. And a warming trend underway. A few scattered storms through the plains. Those highs reflect what's going on with 80s all the way up into Montana. Over 100 degrees again for Palm Springs, Phoenix, and Yuma, Arizona, as well as Death Valley and El Paso, Texas. Muggy 90s in the southeast. Now these cities for you Sunday.
Ladies and gentlemen, Crook and Chase. There's one channel where there's this one weather girl I really like.
What's her name?
I'm not going to tell you.
Here for a preview of some new home videos on the market.
Yes. Did you say it's National Weatherman Day? Is that what it is? I'd like to salute Harold Taft, the world's greatest weatherman in Fort Worth, Texas.
Really?
And then I'd really like to salute Cheryll Jones at CNN. Not Peter Arnett, I tell you that.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, my goodness. A couple of comedies.
Jerry, come on, just yell at us. Please don't get us in trouble again. Who are they kidding?
Cheryll Jones at CNN.
Maybe she'll have a video out soon.
Maybe so.
Caribou, Maine, looking for a high of 75 degrees on Sunday with sunny skies. Not too bad. The news continues now with David French. Washington, D.C., with the fireworks still ongoing. Right now it's 75 degrees, 50% humidity, and a southwest wind at 7. The news continues now with Jonathan Mann. Many travelers heading for the Grand Canyon fly into Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix and then head northward in a rental car. It's a 4-hour drive, and tourists frequently schedule an overnight stop about halfway there. And that's when they discover the beauty of Sedona, as CNN's Bella Shaw reports.
Bella Shaw, CNN Travel Guide.
Come spring, Baker will have a special bond with the past as the last man in the United States tending a lighthouse. Charles Jaco, CNN, Egmont Key, Florida.
I wouldn't mind trying that for a...
I think you'd be very good at that.
Well,
I think you should put in your application tomorrow. Well, that is it for news today. Or now. That's it for now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Cheryll Jones.
Thank you. I'm Patrick Greenlock.
It is now almost 21 minutes past the hour, and we're talking about rain earlier in the day, and of course it's been the subject of a lot of discussion over the last several days with all of the excessive rain, but sometimes we don't have enough.
My feet a little squishy at this moment. Valerie Voss has our weather. Val.
Well, minced mice is the meal served to the first California condor hatched at the Los Angeles Zoo.
Yes, indeed, minced mice. I'm going home and have a bowl of that.
Me too. It's great for breakfast. Just put a little milk in it, you know?
Late night snack.
Absolutely.
Herb Alpert paints. And when he has a moment to spare, he's in his studio, his other studio, pursuing his art. Dennis Michael, CNN Entertainment News, Hollywood.
And he has a right to toot his own horn, I think.
He does after all these years.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for this edition of Newsday. Thanks for joining us. I'm Cheryl Jones.
And I'm Don Miller. Stay with us.
Secretary of State Baker arrives in Prague for talks with Czechoslovakia's new leaders, and Baker may be bringing an offer of U.S. economic support. In Moscow, a Communist Party meeting is in its final day, and Politburo leader Yegor Ligachev is urging careful scrutiny of President Gorbachev's reforms. To our viewers in the United States and around the world, welcome to World Day. I'm Cheryl Jones at the CNN Center in Atlanta. Here's Reed Collins in Washington with our top story.
Good day.
When World Day returns, we'll tell you about some powerful senior citizens in China. They serve the government by keeping tabs on their neighbors.
Thank you, Cheryl.
First of all, in a nutshell for us, Pat, could you just briefly describe the documentary that you've worked on and the purpose behind this effort? It's been a massive undertaking for a year now.
Yes, it has been a labor of love, and one I was committed to doing largely for the purpose of profiling these women whose voices are not the ones we hear on newscasts such as this.
Pat, could you tell us a little bit about what this clip was all about? How did she become such a peacemaker, and specifically, how did her role evolve in Northern Ireland?
Actually, Cheryl, Red represents the way in which a lot of women come into the peace movement through personal tragedy.
A convoy of nearly 100 military vehicles rolls for the capital of Lithuania on the way to a military base. Earlier today, copies of Mr. Gorbachev's ultimatum are dropped over Vilnius. It calls for Army deserters to give themselves up by midnight Saturday. And the U.S. protests the expulsion from Lithuania of 2 U.S. diplomats. In the pre-dawn hours in Oakland, California, an excruciating task lingers on this morning. Workers are extracting from piles of broken concrete and crushed automobiles the bodies of those who died in the collapse of the Nimitz Freeway. The work is slow and taxing, physically and emotionally as well. President Bush will be at the scene later today, but now CNN's John Holloman is there, and he joins us live. John, what is the situation there? It's certainly a gruesome task for the workers and everyone involved. What is happening at this hour?
Well, Cheryl, now that everyone has given up any hope of finding anybody alive,
stock values around the world drop in anticipation of a bad day on Wall Street.
This is Day Watch on CNN with Bob Kane and Cheryl Jones from CNN Center in Atlanta.
As exchanges opened around the world today, stock prices dropped in frenzied trading. But so far, the sell-off has not developed into a full-scale panic. Tokyo is the world's largest stock exchange. It experienced its sharpest drop all year. The exchange closed at 34,468.69. That's down 647.33, losing 1.8% of its value. One trader characterized that as a normal bad day, but not a crash. Standing by now in Chicago is CNN's Jeff Flock with more on this very complicated subject. Jeff, is the mood there this morning just as nervous?
Well, yes, absolutely right, it is.
Increasingly, companies are requiring workers to take drug tests, sometimes even for jobs that are not considered sensitive or dangerous.
But such testing does raise the question of an invasion of privacy and violating the constitutional guarantee against self-incrimination.
Well, we would like to know if you would sit still for such a mandatory test. We will have results at the end of Newsnight.
We'll also choose a few callers to voice your opinion, so please be ready to go on the air.
This is the CNN Evening News, live around the world with Patrick Emery and Cheryl Jones from the CNN Center in Atlanta.
At least 10 cities in the south and southeast hit 100 degrees or more. A hot day indeed. Be careful. Stay in the cool shade. Now the news continues with David French in Washington.
And don't go away, Cheryl.
Now these cities for your Monday. Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryl Jones. Coming up on Prime News Weather, we'll take a look at the very latest radar showing you where those big thunderstorms are this hour. That and more after this. Look for record highs again today in those hot spots. Concordia, Kansas yesterday, a record high of 106. The news and sports continue now with Pat and Mark. Here's a look at some of your favorite cities and forecast highs. Winter storm warnings continue out for much of the higher elevations in the west today and tonight, so be sure to bundle up. Steve. And only a slight chance of an afternoon thunderstorm. Now these cities for your Monday. Yes, Jonathan, it's been one of those nights. The weather has continued to be very active through the overnight hours so far. Even some snow showers on tap again for parts of the Rockies. Now these cities for your Monday. Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryl Jones. As we end the weekend and start a new week, well, we are looking for some summery weather in some parts of the country, some cool weather in others. Now these cities for your Monday. Well, that is a quick look at your Monday weather. I'm Cheryl Jones at the CNN Center in Atlanta. The news continues after this. That's it for now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Cheryl Jones.